Hello and welcome to another episode of Faith Talk, where we talk all things theology, religion, and life's tough questions. I'm Oliver, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Payton Arnett.
Hey, happy summer, guys! Happy 4th of July. This is the July episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And today we're joined by a close friend of ours, Zion Taito. So
Yes.
Zion, thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Yes. Thank you guys for having me. When I got the email, the email from the exact email from Faith Talk, it was, I couldn't say no. And so I'm just blessed and honored to be back here from my roots of high school. And so seeing what you guys have been doing this past years, let alone with just this podcast, has been a blessing. And so just know I've been tuning in to Spotify and listening, when I'm out there, because it always brings me back a sense of home. And so I'm honored to be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So for the audience, why don't you kind of like introduce yourself a little bit? Kind of give us your worldview is the term I'll use. Your religion, kind of just your perspective on life.
Yeah. Answers to life's tough questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Okay. Well, for starters, obviously my name is Zion Taito. I am Samoan, and I've grown up Adventist. I am currently at La Sierra University in Riverside, California. I am studying and majoring in religious studies.
Awesome.
So whatever God wants me to do after undergrad, I'll let it be. But something I want to do and approach in the church is really tackle the idea of how we do worship. And I want to become a worship pastor.
Awesome.
And see what we can tag off of how important and what we should do with worship in the church and the importance of it. And I love God. I've been trained all my life to love God, to love Him, to love others. But as I've gotten older, my thinking has grown. My faith has broadened and is still shaping, right? Because we're people that we're still growing and learning from new things every day. And that's pretty much it. I went to school at Auburn Adventist Academy with these guys. Did campus ministries, and now it's just a shocker to see what they're doing now, even post-COVID, even amidst COVID. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. So that's
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is so wonderful about all the people that I've worked with in my many different outlets of ministry is one of the reasons you've been on our guest list for a while.
Okay.
Because you do music production.
With Sammy, actually.
Like our producer, Sammy,
Yeah.
right? You do music production, and you talked about worship.
Yeah.
And we all worship in these different ways.
Yeah.
And one of the most important things is not shutting any of those doors.
Yeah.
Because we have one way of doing things that's great, right? I enjoy a very traditional church service.
Yeah.
But people need to have outlets for other ways to worship, because just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong.
Yeah.
And one of the ways I kind of worship actually is this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Conversations,
Yeah.
right? I love the art of conversation. You're in music production. Oliver does graphic design, right? And there's all these different ways that we're talented, and bringing those perspectives to the table is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many different ways of worship. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Just using those spiritual gifts that God gave you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that He gave it to you for a purpose, right?
For a reason, yeah.
Yeah, the reason, Pastor Rome and I are doing this sermon series coming up. Little plug here, but called The Reason for God, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm talking about in the first part, it's about the uncaused first cause in the Creator. And one thing I'm going to focus on there is how God designed us, right? So if we were designed by an intelligent Creator, that means that those gifts you have are not an accident.
Yeah.
Which adds that meaning to your life.
Yeah.
It's like, I actually do have a purpose because an intelligent, loving being created me for a purpose and gave me these gifts for a reason.
Yeah.
It gave me these interests for a reason. And that adds that meaning for life.
Yeah. I think that's very beautiful what you guys have been both saying. We talked about how you guys just said right now, allowing those different spaces for different people that can worship, right? And, different sometimes is often viewed as a problem for people sometimes.
Yeah.
And, it's a part of taking that leap, being open to something different, because while oftentimes things might not be what you want, they're often what you need. And so, worship is just something that, people come from very different backgrounds, different, cultures.
Yeah.
And there's different ways, where someone might just only want a hymn song or with one organ and go more towards the liturgical service of the olden days. And then there might be with a huge band, and it's going to be some gospel, it's going to be some praising hands, but I believe that there is beauty in the many different cultures and ways of how we approach worship. So
as long as you got Christ at the center of it.
Yeah.
If the heart's right. I was just talking to Pastor Rome just not long ago at all, and we were talking about how it's about where the heart's at in the place. Like, people point out discrepancies in the scripture. Of like, well, in this place, like when David took a census here, God said that's wrong. You should have taken that census. But then in the New Testament, Luke talks about numbers and like, why is numbers wrong here and right here? It's like, it's about the heart behind it.
Yeah.
So somebody may look at like a rock band, and I've even said before that, like, if you put a rock band in church, if you got the words right and you got the heart right, I'm cool with that. Yeah. Some people may not like that, but it's about the message and the heart of the thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
That'd be so cool, man. I'd be so down to see a rock concert at church.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's for me, like, I'll listen to songs by, like, Skillet because maybe they're a little loud for some people, and that's cool, too.
I'm a big hip-hop guy. I listen to a lot of Christian rap, Christian hip-hop.
Lecrae.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Wow. This isn't exactly the topic we discussed, but I'm loving the conversation.
Yeah.
But I would like to get into that, though, because when we got your email back, you sent in the topic, and I there might have been a verbal, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, when I read that, because that was perfect.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about.
Well, hey guys, come on! Your two hosts right here are graduates. They just graduated this year, and we're approaching now the next step in what our life is. For some of us that may be college, some of us that may be work, and there's not only one way of how we can approach whatever is next in our life. But I did want to talk about campus life and faith after high school. Right? Because we grow up going to church once a week, or through doing Vespers and Bible studies and worships or wherever throughout the week. We're in that, knowing we're going to high school, knowing we're going through K through 8, and like we're just in this routine of where faith is being presented to us, and like there's not really room for us to like shape it on our own. Yeah. Right. And like it's kind of like you're waiting with like a lot of consumerism, but that's something on its own that can be discussed. After high school, you're really waiting with like, what principles, what morals, what ethics are you going to take in approaching your life, and how can you do that on your own? And so that's kind of like what I wanted to talk about. Oh, yeah. Whether that's in school or whether that's not. And so
what's cool too is that I think the audience kind of have grown here.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people listening to this, I hope a lot of people listening to this are actually still in high school.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that we all went to Adventist schools growing up, right? So we experienced, some may use the word sheltered.
Yeah.
Or you grew up with that worldview infused in you. Now, you still keep that with you as you grow, right?
You do.
But when you said that, I thought, okay, I'm just thinking of people who are like going out of that and going into like the secular university, right? Because the secular university is one of the number one places I think on the planet you can go where your faith will be challenged.
Yeah.
And I think you even experienced that in a private school.
Yeah, no, you do.
Yeah. So I'm curious because you have more experience at that than I do yet. I'm going into that, but I haven't gotten there yet. So.
I'm sure you guys have already like had your talks with like, people that have helped mentor you throughout, those that are older and wiser, like that have told you guys about college and what it's like or what life is like after high school. And, the real truth is, and this is like literally so true, you can find anything and everything wherever you want if you look for it.
Oh yeah.
And this is real, guys. This is real. Okay, we're gonna be real here. This is a space for authenticity. Absolutely. And even in the Adventist colleges, there are people that have outlets to parties, to drinking, to smoking, and all of that. And that culture is real, right? And being someone who is grown up in a place in a whatever background you've grown up in, where like all of that stuff is like your belief system is like kind of already there for you, and you're just there to take it. And you're kind of like sheltered, as you said. Yeah. You're going out of that, and this is where you are going to be challenged, and like that stuff is going to be tested. Yeah. And so that stuff is real, even in the secular world, or even in like the Adventist colleges. Trust me, it comes from like the people that you least expect it with, and like the places that you least think it would be. And so you have to like, that's why I said like in your faith walk, you have to be prepared for like stuff like that and allow yourself to continue to be shaped and growing and learning every day. And so, but yeah, that stuff is real, man.
Oh yeah,
that stuff is real.
I mean, Oliver, you've heard it 1,000 times because we do this podcast, and I talk about it all the time. That's the role of apologetics to me.
Yeah.
And as Pastor Rome has mentored me here during my time at this church that we're recording at right now. For those of you who don't know, we're recording on a church campus.
It's a pastor right here.
He's talked a lot about like the college secular university.
Yeah.
Because the secular university is like the extreme example.
Yeah.
But I really, I went on a lot of college tours as someone who's embarking on that step, and I've seen that, you'll find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
No, you will,
And all of the universities, whether you're going to a private Christian university or not, have it. And in the workforce, of course, I have experience in the secular workforce as well. Let me tell you, my faith is challenged there.
Yeah.
You don't even know. And in the challenge with that is what isn't appropriate to talk about at work, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I want to go to a Christian university.
Yeah.
Is because I'm like, okay, there at least I'm allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's why apologetics, I think, is so important, is when you're confronted with that, right? Say somebody asks you a question about God. You have to be able to give an answer.
Yeah.
That's what one of my favorite verses is 1 Peter 3:15. 1 Peter 3:15 says, always be prepared to give an answer for the hope that you have. And always be ready to explain it. And do it in a gentle and respectful way.
Yeah.
And Dr. Frank Turek puts it this way. He says, people are getting talked out of Christianity, especially when they go to college, because they've never been talked into it in the first place. If you haven't been taught why you believe what you believe, you never get anywhere. And that's kind of the mission of Faith Talk, is that conversation.
Yeah.
So you actually are informed.
Yeah.
That's a very it's a good life lesson for just in general your beliefs with religion and other things you believe as well. You should always be able to give a reason why you believe that. Earlier we were talking about faith, and that it's a whole leap of faith, and it's good to have faith. Faith is a good thing, but blind faith, it's
absolutely.
You need to have exactly right. But when you have faith, you should have a reason why you have that faith. It shouldn't just be, I believe it because I believe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most common misconceptions that I like to talk about and have a conversation and dialogue, because that's not the faith the scripture is talking about. Again, we call the show Faith Talk, and it's many shows are called something with the word faith, and we use the word faith a lot. Oh, you just got to have faith. And we kind of do that even like someone's going through a hard time. Oh, you just got to have faith.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, what
is that?
Yeah.
And it's not what we think it is.
Yeah.
Because over time, I think due to sheltered environments, over history, people have gotten used to just having the faith of their parents.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the faith that Paul is talking about is faith because of, not in lack of.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference.
I'm coding that down. Those
bars right there.
Yeah, but you like the initiation process of like how you said that, like it's because some people haven't even like heard about it. They ain't even like had that initial conversation. Sometimes the spark to like someone's faith walk is through a conversation. Simply just like this. It doesn't take a service like we're off.
It's not even a conversation about faith, right?
Yeah.
It can be a conversation about something totally different.
Exactly. The least what you'd expect it to be. And so just simply taking that spark, really, to be honest. And so, yeah.
Well, that's it's about relationships, right?
Yeah.
As ministers of the gospel, and I've talked about this many times, that we're all called to be ministers of the gospel. We got to use every type of conversation.
Yeah.
Going back to that example of working in the secular world.
Yeah.
I'm not really you're not supposed to talk to your coworkers.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, sup, nice to meet you. What do you think about God? No, you talk about other things.
Yeah.
But eventually it always comes out. I've noticed that. As someone who faith is the number one thing in my life. God is number one. And I make that a very strong priority. It always comes up.
Yeah.
And I've had times at work where people are like, okay, I think we're going into territory where probably not appropriate for work.
Yeah.
But the conversation always goes there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start there.
No, it does.
It starts with conversations about movies.
Yeah.
Right? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You talk about TV movies and just life.
Yeah.
And eventually the conversation gets there.
Yeah.
Because that's the quintessential questions of life.
It's interesting how that works like that. Like you were talking about that book about, what's the name of it?
Hollywood Heroes.
That one.
Yep.
Yeah.
How all our stories reveal his story. And it's kind of crazy because when you really think about it, he really is at the center of everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's crazy.
We're all just little chapters in this big book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in that, going to the topic at hand at how to do, like specifically, I keep using universities as the general example, but one of the ways I think we can reach people on universities as ministers is using examples like that.
Yeah.
Is connecting with people.
The
that
relevancy.
way. Yeah, the relevancy.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I think we really have enjoyed on this podcast is feeling comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Because that's what it interests people, right?
Yeah.
That's what this generation, our generation,
Yeah.
is interested in. And they're, look, for instance, people may not like that, right? Someone may challenge you. Someone who's maybe an older person in the church who hasn't seen this sort of thing before.
Yeah.
It says, hey, why are you using secular things to talk about biblical things?
Yeah.
You just got to look at Paul.
Yeah.
Paul did that.
Yeah.
Paul used secular philosophy in order to make his point.
Yeah.
And we can do the same thing today, especially on college campuses.
Yeah. And if you can't, like, that goes to say, like how you said about Paul, if you can't make those connections in different aspects of your life, what are you going to, like, expect to be relevant to those that aren't familiar with that? And so also another thing is too, we were talking about, in the universities, like, we've been like trained to like go to the, a church service on Saturday through Vespers and all of that. You will see like opportunity of where people, they will have that level of freedom. And then once they get there to like, after high school and college, they're not going to want to go to certain things anymore. And like all of that is like tested. It all starts with the simplicity of this idea of what we call choice. And so like, what decisions are you going to make and like stuff like that. And so, yeah.
And that goes back, it goes back to the home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you always look, Jordan Peterson, who's somebody who I follow pretty regularly, read his stuff. He talks about how it starts in the home and the psychology
it
of
does.
that, because, and he even describes it this way. He says, before you go out and criticize the world and talk about all the things going on in the world, first get your house in order. He also puts it this way: clean your room first.
Yeah.
Just do the simple things.
Yeah.
But when you talk about like students going to college campus and giving up their faith and choosing other things, we need to raise our kids. And this is me talking to my generation, who's at some point sooner rather than later probably going to be having another generation, and we need to raise our kids to know why.
Yeah.
Because I think if our kids knew why, they wouldn't be going to college and giving it up. Because there is good reason for it.
Yeah.
It's just not taught. You're just raised, okay, you're a Christian. That's what you believe. You go to church, you go to school, that's that. Yeah. And it's forced on you. Yeah. And it's not personalized to you. And then you don't want it anymore when you're given the choice. As opposed to raising someone and saying, this is faith. This is why we believe what we believe.
Yeah.
And then giving that kid the choice from day one.
Yeah.
Then I think there'll be a very different outlook once they get to universities.
That's a very good point about how the whole thing about it being forced is one of the biggest deterrents from faith. It's like that, the whole like religion versus spiritualism things. Like religion is this set of rules you have to follow. Go to church every Saturday or Sunday. Go to Vespers. You have to do that. Versus spiritualism is that relationship with God. Then because of that, you will do those things.
Yes.
Not you do those things because of that.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, and I loved what you said about that because, in part of my time in high school, when I was a part of campus ministries, I'm sure you guys were too as well. I saw that. And, ministry, even my parents have taught me this, it starts at home.
Absolutely.
It starts at home. It starts at the stuff of what you're doing at home, the way you act, the way you eat, the way you clean yourself, whether or not you make your bed or not, hygiene process and all that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And my dad has always told me, it's like, how do you expect to be of good impact and influence and of good work if you can't even do that at home?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, it starts at home, guys. And Kavanji even told us that with campus ministries, too. He would always, like, tell us, it's like, guys, the ministry, before it gets out there, it starts at home. Absolutely. It starts at home, so.
To add on to that, too, because that's absolutely true. What I found is it can be the hardest in the home.
It is the hardest.
It's almost like
it is the
you
hardest.
get used to your home being a certain way.
Yeah.
And then it's harder when you're that close to those people.
Yes.
To do ministry at home.
Yeah.
It's almost easier.
Yeah.
When it's just your community.
Yeah.
It's almost less weighty in a way. But it does start there.
Yeah.
Because if you can't minister in your home, if you can't get together as a family and worship and minister, then you're going to have a hard time going out to your church family, your community. Because we are all one race, a human race, one family.
Yeah.
And if you can't minister at home, you're not going to be able to do it very effectively anywhere else.
And like, I love that. It actually makes me think of, we're all Seahawks fans, right?
No.
All right.
We have the odd man out here.
Did we grow up being Seahawks fans?
I did.
Okay.
Did.
Yeah.
He didn't.
No. So, do we remember like that LOB era? Like the whole like Skittles with Marshawn.
Right?
Come on now. Come on. Hey, we got a ring. We didn't get the other, but Marshawn Lynch was the, he was a beast. Literally beast mode. Right? And he had this one interview in the Super Bowl that we were playing the Patriots.
Where he said, I'm just here so I don't get fined?
No. He always kept saying that. No, he's like, yeah. I'm just here so I won't get fined. I guess that's really why I'm here at Faith Talk. He had this interview with Deion Sanders, I think, or one of the greats, and he was asked, he's like, you excited for today? And he's like, how do you do what you do? And then Marshawn replies, I'm just about that action, boss. Do you guys remember that interview?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so that statement, is something that we should ask ourselves as Christians in our approach to faith. Are you really about that action? And it starts at home. That action. Are you, like, you said that level of, intimacy that we have with those that are close at our home, it's like harder to like reach them, and it's like, if you're one way towards them, it's like, when you go out there, it's like, that person's not really about that action. It's not like my brother doesn't do that, And I have two sisters that I'm like, but like I just like, some people. I was told this from one of my professors at a school. Some lead because of like the office or the label that they have, and then some others like lead because they're called to it, and that's something also I think we can also approach in our life in taking in faith. So,
it's about the heart in it again.
Yeah,
right?
the heart.
Yeah, and that's what I worry about titles so much.
Yeah.
Even taking it to the absolute extreme, right?
Yeah.
I'll often say this, and people just get perplexed when I say it, but like, the person who's president of the United States shouldn't want to be president of the United States.
Yeah.
Right? He shouldn't want to be there.
He just is.
It should be out of serving.
Yeah.
It should be a sacrifice.
And it's about that action.
It's, we take that to the logical extreme, but ministry is the actual logical extreme. You shouldn't do ministry because you wanna.
Yeah.
Or because you think you'll get something out of it.
Yeah.
That's actually doing the opposite.
Yeah.
You do it because you've been called to do it.
Yeah.
You've received that call. God wants you to do it. Yeah. And then you should be making sacrifices. Yeah. If you're not, then maybe you should think about that. Yeah. Because it's not about us. It's about what He's called us to do.
Yeah.
And that's not a popular thing today either. Yeah. On universities, it very much is about you.
Yeah.
It's meology.
Yeah.
As opposed to focusing on Him.
Yeah.
And He'll work us out.
And I think the idea of being called is often, it's easier for like those like us that are actually approaching ministry, theological studies, all of that. It's easier to be told that we are called and feel called. But for someone that like isn't going to approach ministry, that literal like studious aspect,
not studying
it's going to be hard to be referred. Okay, but like, what am I called to? What is my calling? It can be easy for you to be dismayed and like to think it's like, well, I'm not gonna go be a pastor. I'm probably just gonna be a deacon or like an elder or something.
Just a deacon.
Yeah, but I guarantee you, I promise you, I've seen it even in like the most simplistic ways of how people are called. Some of you, like, you're called to help the minister be motivated and just like be reminded of why you're there to just be a reminder of why people are valued and why they are loved, why they exist, right? Because someone could be doing something that is ideally not right, right? And then your calling could be that you're called to help that person be reminded of their worth, in simplistic ways of like that form. And so, yeah, if you're worried about your call being either like too small or, not either too big or whatnot, don't think that I believe that is a toxic way of thinking, because each and every single one of us are called to serve in 1 Peter 2:3, I believe.
3:15.
Yeah, 3:15. 1 Peter 3:15. We are called to do one thing, and that is to serve, right? And so in whatever capacity that is to serve, you are called in that form. And so that's different for everybody.
Everybody has a reason.
Yeah.
Yep. You think of that little picture of like the domino trail with the smallest domino here, and they have a huge domino right there. And then just pushing that little domino, you get this huge domino to topple over. It's just like that domino effect, where your calling may seem small now, but then in the future, you can see how God used you to make this huge impact.
It's you never know, and that's a little bit of a weighty thing for all of us in a way, right? Because you never know what one comment could do for someone, for or against someone. And you never know what one action you do accidentally or on purpose can make a difference. You never know if somebody might hear this podcast. It could change their life. Not because of anything we're doing, but because of the way God works. And the fact is that we ought to just view every calling from God as the most important thing. Don't view it as small or big.
Yeah.
It's all big.
Extremely
if it's a calling from God.
Yeah. Yeah. I took actually, before I talk about that, I'm preaching this Saturday. I'm actually interning at Auburn City.
That's awesome.
Seventh-day Adventist Church, right down here, neighbors of the Academy Church, with Pastor Oaf and Pastor Corey. And I have the privilege of doing that this summer. And this week, we're going to be starting a series, a little plug, like Payton does for his series.
That's all right.
Man, if I work with Payton in the future, that'd be dope in the same conference. But whatever God calls. But, faith like a river is our theme for this summer, and seeing how water, the different water stories in the Bible are talk about faith and deal with faith. And this week I'll be preaching on Matthew 8 and the story of when Jesus and the disciples are crossing over after in Matthew chapter 8, the Sea of Galilee. This is not the one where they're by themselves and has Peter walk out. It's where Jesus is with them in the boat, and they're like, "Oh, but why are you of little faith?" Matthew chapter 8, we see all of like Jesus is on this like streak of like healing people, and like he's going through the town Capernaum. Yeah. He's I forgot. I don't even know how you say it.
What side note? One thing that I've been told by Pastor Rome is whenever you pronounce something, just pronounce it confidently. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're right. If it's Capernaum, then it's
Capernaum. Say it with
confidence. Just say it that way, and nobody will question you. Yeah. They'll question if they're wrong.
Yeah. Well, anyway. In Matthew 8, so we see Jesus like he's healing a bunch of these people. He's on a roll. He sees a streak, and then they get over to Peter's house, and he heals his mother, Peter's mother-in-law, and then he's like, "All right, we're gonna cross over." And then we approach the story of when they're on the boat. Right? They go, and they're about to cross, and the waves. There's this big tempest that comes across them. Jesus is like sleeping. He's dozed off, and like
he's dozed off.
Right? He's like dozed off, and like which would call it. They're like, Jesus, help us. And then Jesus wakes up. He's like, why do you guys fear? Are you guys of little faith? Right? He poses that question to them, And what I'm kind of extracted from this story is that, I think oftentimes, my sermon title is Faith Like a River, get in. I think oftentimes, we get into the faith, right? It's all good. It feels good. Everything is going well. Everything is playing out well in our faith. We're hearing these good words, these sermons and everything. But, I think oftentimes what we as Christians tend to do is that we forget what we got into.
Yep.
Knowing that he was there. He's there. He's with us. You know what I'm saying? And did you guys go on that rafting trip? To Leavenworth or Wenatchee? Yeah. And so like I've been talking about that story, I was like, when heard about what rafting was and what white water was, you know, it's kind of scary at first because I didn't know what it was. And then, but I had like, you know, I was kind of dismayed knowing what I was going to get into, right? You know, all I had to do was just to get in, right? To the idea, right? To get in. I had to go there, take the bus trip there to Leavenworth and just have that experience. And I made some beautiful memories. But, you know, that time of like, I feel like we're in life, we're in like this boat in the sea of life. And like, we know Jesus is steering our ship. We know God is there looking over and in control. But we get in and then we just forget. And our faith is often dismayed. And it's like,
if you want a good example of faith, on that trip, Samuel was sitting on the nose of the boat.
Yeah, I was
not in the front, on the nose.
Yeah.
And then he took a huge like dive off of one of the waves.
Yeah.
Jose was on the nose too, and he went underwater.
He was completely submerged.
So completely submerged.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But even in like a non-religious background, or you know, whatever, like no faith, intent, like whether or not we believe in God or not, if someone were to take that trip, they would have had to have some sort of faith in their paddle, their raft, in the captain.
Right.
And that approach to life, like having faith is something we also need to like. It's just like, it's a thing that like, you know, you don't like, sometimes to see God, it doesn't even take like, you know, the extreme spiritual settings or things to just witness him. And it's just like, that's kind of like often, we get in and we just forget sometimes God is there.
Yeah, I think that I like to say it this way, we're pampered a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll do that, right? We'll have that conversion where we're like, I'm all in.
Yeah.
You go all in. But then when we're not confronted with challenges and everything's just kind of smooth sailing, we forget. You look at the children of Israel over the hundreds of years. Whenever things got easy, they turned away from God. And whenever things got hard, they called back to God. But that's not how it's supposed to be. That's not a relationship. That's using someone like a genie in the bottle. We're supposed to call on God when it's good and when it's bad. And we don't often do that. We just call on him when things are bad. And I think that we, in this country, in the United States, we're so blessed that we aren't often confronted with those challenges. And I think that when we are, like in a place like a university setting, we don't know how to respond to them. And in that case, you don't even really call on God when you're confronted with that sort of challenge. You just give up because you have no foundation.
That's even a discussion in itself. What are you rooted on? So you know? Romans 8:18 affirms us about that the sufferings and the things that we're going through right now are not worth the glory, the beauty, and what we already will receive and what we're promised.
Right.
And it just goes to this. Look at the word of God in the most simplistic way. We are promised eternity with God. We are promised all these good things with God if we listen, if we obey, in the most base, simplistic way level in our faith, right? We are promised this. Why then are we tried? Do we forget that?
I think that's a really good point. And that's, we forget about God. I think because we get so caught up in this world. And we get, once again, going back to the climate that we're in, I think we're so obsessed with ourselves. And it's encouraged to be obsessed with yourself, right? Because this country was at one point, we lived in a place where faith was number one, I think, at a time. Not to say we didn't have our struggles. But now we've kind of just rejected God altogether. And not on an individual level, but on an overall level. And when we do that, that means that when you're in a university setting or when you're in the secular world, it's encouraged to be obsessed with yourself. There was a time when narcissism was bad. It's not that time anymore. So I think that plays a big role in that. Because of the world we're in, it's not encouraged to focus on God. In fact, focusing on God is seen in a bad way in a lot of environments that we're placed into. And I think that's a huge root of that problem.
That's actually that's a scary thing.
It is.
That's a scary thing because, right, in our faith walks, there will come a time, like plenty of times, where it's just about me, and never about we. Never about God and I. Or never just about God.
Never just about God, right.
And that's a scary thing, right? Because, and that's also another thing that can be misconcepted in religion and faith is that we think that the gospel is only just applying to us.
Yeah.
It's just applying to us, right?
It doesn't apply to those heathens.
And that we all, yeah, exactly. Like looking at people as other, like that's not a thing like that we should do. We are like going back to the most simplistic way and base level. We are all of one race, the human race.
Absolutely.
It's so simple.
It is.
It is extremely simple. But being the humans that we are, we tend to complicate things.
We categorize.
I
think we discussed that before, but I think that is one of the roots of the problems today. And in lots of conversations I've had recently, that's really the crux of it, is that as human beings, we like to simplify things. We like to categorize things. And we view ourselves in one way, and we view everyone else as other in one way, shape, or form. And it's either you're with me or you're against me. It's an all or nothing. It's you believe such and such, therefore you are such and such.
Yeah.
And that's another thing we do too, is that it's like I think therefore I am, almost. It's your identity is tied to whatever you do. Mm-hmm. Our identity should only be tied to Christ. Mm-hmm. But in this day and age, your identity is tied to whatever you do.
Say that again.
Mm-hmm. And you're categorized by such. Mm-hmm. And there's no mercy, there's no grace in that.
Yeah.
There's no love in that. Mm-hmm. And we have our own definitions of love, as Pastor Roman said.
Yeah.
And
that's another thing too. I know that, in our faith walks, things can get cliche.
Oh yeah.
And that's okay.
It's all right.
John 3:16.
It's
like
such a beautiful verse. It's so shrugged off.
And approaching after high school, there are things that we don't want to hear again and again and again, and like stuff that we don't, kind of relate with. But sometimes we as people, we need to hear that again and again and again, because again and again and again we don't get it. We don't, and so, but. I know. That's another thing too. Is faith. That idea. What do you guys think? Like, it can that tendency of being too repetitive and everything sounding the same and nothing new.
Yeah.
And, I would feel like that kind of be scary for someone in their faith walk.
I think there's a reason though why things keep getting repeated and become cliche eventually. It's because it's true.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
And so it's important to remember that thing, which is why I think it sometimes can end up getting repeated. Like, for example, John 3:16 over and over again. You see it on every car, every shirt, But it's a beautiful verse.
It's the gospel.
It is the gospel.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And it's just incredible, which is why it's been repeated over and over again, because it's such good news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but then the question is, what do you do about that? How do you fix that problem of it's getting repeated over and over again? Because when people say that, they're not hearing that verse. They're just hearing, that again. So how do we do that? And I think that involves kind of what we're doing here at Faith Talk, is trying to be innovative. The truth is still the truth. It's still the same thing. But maybe we can address it a different way so that somebody can hear it again. Because once you hear John 3:16 once, okay, that's cool. And then you hear it 7, 8, 9, 10,000 times. Eventually it loses that oomph. But if you address it in a different way, then that oomph comes back.
There's a difference between knowing something and realizing something. You can know, for example, God loved the world. You can know that. But then once you realize what that sacrifice really meant and what he really did, it's a whole different perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. And that comes back once again to these students who go to college campuses and lose their faith. Because they know in their head right here that they know Christianity. They know what it's about. But it hasn't become real for them. They haven't realized what it means for them. And when it's not your own experience. When you haven't experienced Jesus yourself, it's easy to give up. Once you've really experienced Jesus for yourself, you're never letting go.
And to tag on that, there are going to be times where things in our walk of faith, times where things are not going to make sense, right? Things are not going to make sense. I took this class called Religion, Faith, and Life with Timothy Gillespie, who is the pastor of Crosswalk SDA Church down there in the Inland Empire. He said that the Gospels, the life of Jesus is not really to make sense. It's to create faith, right? Yeah. And that approach, I think, even just looking in the text that I'll be preaching on this Saturday, what sense does it make that a man stopped a tempest, right? What sense does it make that he healed lepers with crazy diseases? What sense does it make of that? But we as individuals, in approaching that, reading the text, that is like allowing, like if we believe that, if we allow faith to kick in, that's allowing for us, for our faith to be shaped. Because, I mean, ideally, if you're going to just tell this to someone, a man, stopped waves. Well, someone walked on water simply by just looking at a man of high, authority. And when he didn't look at him, he fell in the water. It doesn't make sense. But it allows, for us to, create faith, right? Mm-hmm. And to allow for it to be shaped. And so I kind of wanted to share that and see if you guys, what do you guys think?
Oh, yeah, it's powerful. There's so much in this world today arguing for our attention, right? We're pulled in 1,000 different directions. And one of the things that's key, I think, is realizing priorities. The disciples didn't really have their priorities in check when they cried out to Jesus, "Why aren't you saving us?" Because if they should have been confident, right? They'd seen what he'd done. They'd seen him heal lepers. But they hadn't fully realized. They were still, this journey for them was long. And they hadn't realized just who Jesus was. If they had, they would have trusted him enough to not fear. Because they should have known he's got us.
And we forget. We forget. We get in this faith walk, and then we forget, who we've been, like, who we're with. But that's why we need to take hold of, and grasp of the experiences, the moments that we share with each other, to, those that share of singular faith with us, to be reminded of the beauty in what we're in. So that way we can have motivation to continue our faith walk, to continue creating spaces for discussion like here. And so that's extremely important, being aware and looking out for spaces of where you can have that conversation of faith.
Yeah, as humans, we all carry our own baggage. We got anxiety, depression, our sins, our addictions. And then God comes along. He's just like, hey, let me take that.
I got it. It's the trash bag analogy.
It's the trash bag analogy. He's like...
Miss Richards, the skit guys.
He's like, let me take that. And then initially, you could be like, okay, here you go. But I still want this. But he's like, no, let me take all of it. But I still want this. He's like, no, all of it. And then... So you just got to... It's that journey of eventually coming to let him take all of it. Instead of holding on to those things that weigh you down.
Yeah. I love that trash bag analogy. It's the Skit Guys video. It's like 13 years old. I still go back and watch it because it's relatable. It's real.
Yeah, it's true. It's a powerful message. And
I think it's something. It brings you aware of your own struggles. Because no matter who you are, there's that one thing you're holding on to. I don't know what it is for each and every one of us. It's different, but we all hold on to something.
It's a slap in the face. It's one of those reality checks.
And yet we enjoy watching it, don't we?
Yeah.
Because it almost gives us a sense of comfort to know that, hey, everybody's going through this too. We're all in this together. And God forgives us as long as we're aware of it, right? That's the key, is about repentance, is being aware. And when you watch that video and you say, I'm aware of the fact that I'm struggling with this, then you're like, and I'm also aware that God forgives me for this. And that really is relieving in a way.
Yeah. I will say, that analogy of, giving up a lot and then still holding on to some, it's a real thing. It's a real thing in our faith. And, like you said, to be aware of it, be mindful that, you are to repent, all that stuff, just know that if you do, end up giving it all, as the promise says, we will, the trials of now, right, are not worth the glory and the beauty that we will have and what is going to be revealed to us in the end. And, every day is a new day. Every day is a new struggle. Something approaches, life hits, right? The rapids are gonna hit. The rafts are gonna hit. We might lose our paddle.
Maybe.
We might lose our paddle, but we know who's leading.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you have your eyes on the captain.
Yes.
And he ain't going anywhere.
Yes. All four. Back three.
Yeah.
You know, listen. Really be mindful of, you know, what the Spirit is trying to tell you, to inform you. And sometimes, you know, I know that sounds like a really unpractical thing to listen for the Spirit, literally. But, you know, in some cases, it's not always going to be the namaste, like, you know, sense of listening.
Yeah.
But, you know, be mindful of the different approaches that the Spirit may be approaching you, and trying to, you know, have you be mindful of this walk of faith and your calling. And so, faith, you know what I'm saying? After high school, after graduation, you know, I think we're coming to a close. You know, so. What encouragements can we like encourage our people, our believers, our non-believers, you know, to help them keep afloat in their raft? What can we encourage them?
We can each go around.
I'll start by saying, just remember that God's got you. No matter how uncertain your future may seem, no matter if you know what you're going to do tomorrow or not, He's got you. Even if you don't believe it at times, even if you don't believe in God, I still believe that God's got you. So,
absolutely.
Right, and kind of like he said, you know, even my professor said in my religious faith and life class, right, to not believe in God is to believe something, and so that's it. Right? Yeah, exactly. That you believe, you believe that God is not real, right? And so they have faith. Even those people require faith to believe that He is real, because when He is, which we all know, we believe that He is gonna clap back at them. And so, but you know, to tag on what you even said about confidence, be confident in your faith. You know, be confident in your faith that you are gonna get that girl's number, that you are gonna get that guy's digits, that you are gonna get their gamer tag. I don't know what it is. Be confident. Right, and that's kind of something that I would, you know, encourage someone or somebody today, you know, to be confident, right, in what you say and what you believe, and be firm, right. You are going to be responsible of what ethics, morals, principles you're going to tag off of into what your shape of faith is going to be, but it's up to you, right? It's up to you and your choice of what you're going to do, and you be of good cheer, right? The Bible tells us, and just know that when the raft is moving and seeming dismayed, just be mindful of who's leading it, and we know who that is. And so,
I kind of want to go off what you brought up, talking to both the believer and the skeptic, right? To the skeptic, or to somebody who's maybe struggling or not knowing where he or she's at with God, I'd say you gotta look at where your priorities are at. Look at what's your God in your life, because we all believe in something. And I encourage everyone, I don't care where you're at in life, pursue truth. Find what is true. Not your truth or my truth, because that's a silly concept, but the truth. And I encourage you to do that, because I truly believe, not in order to get to Jesus. Don't do it in order to get to Jesus. Do it in order to get whatever lies ahead. And I truly believe it'll lead you to the one who said He is the truth. And to the believer, I say, learn why you believe what you believe. Grow strong in that foundation, so that when you are confronted with challenges, you'll be ready to face them. And know that God's got you.
He does.
And know that no matter what rapids come towards your way, they are minuscule compared to the joy set before us in heaven. Because that hope we have is far greater than anything we can comprehend.
Tell them.
Believer or skeptic,
tell them.
The meaning in life comes from something greater than you and I. And it's not about us. And once you accept that, it's a burden lifted off your shoulders. You may have new burdens that come along, but the fact is that they will all lead you to that end prize, that captain, He who we set our eyes on. For the joy set before Him, He endured that cross for us. And that's where my meaning derives, and I hope that each and every one of us can derive the meaning from the same thing.
A leap of faith. That's all it is. That's all it is.
I believe that's about it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
God bless.
God bless y'all.
Happy summer.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Faith Talk.
Check us out on all of our socials. That'll be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and all the above. We also are on YouTube.
And subscribe to all our channels, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, things like that.
And be sure to check out our merch store. It not only supports us, but it helps us bring you higher quality content.
Yeah, and remember, we got a weekly word on Wednesday every week on Get This Wednesday.
And episodes come out first of the month.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully we'll catch you on the next one.
God bless.